Tucson welcomed September with heat. Daytime temperatures still reached 35 degrees, and at night, the air barely cooled to 20. Austin Daniels had grown accustomed to this climate during his 10 years living in Arizona. He had moved here after college, looking for something new, something far from rainy Seattle, where he had grown up. The house Austin had bought 3 years ago in northwest Tucson was a small ranch in a middle-class neighborhood. A single-story building with beige stucco, a small yard with cacti and gravel instead of grass, a typical Arizona property. The neighbors kept their distance but were friendly. Austin paid his mortgage with his salary as a manager at Sports Authority, a large sporting goods store in a shopping mall. The job wasn't his dream, but it provided stability, a decent income, and the ability to not think about money every day. James Collins came into Austin's life 5 years ago at a mutual friend's party. James taught American literature at Pima Community College, had a doctorate, and spoke about Faulkner and Hemingway with such passion that Austin immediately took an interest in him. James was 6 years older, with gray hair at his temples, which added to his charm. He seemed confident, intelligent, stable, everything Austin had been missing in previous relationships. They started dating, and a year later, James moved to Austin. Everything fell into place naturally. Dinners together, movies on Fridays, trips to the Santa Catalina Mountains on weekends. They didn't advertise their relationship to everyone, but they didn't hide it either. Tucson was a fairly liberal city, especially in the university circles where James moved. But lately, something had changed. Austin couldn't say exactly when this feeling had started. Maybe 6 months ago. James had started traveling to conferences more often. At first, it seemed normal. Professors regularly attend academic events. It's part of the job. But the frequency of his trips increased. Once a month turned into twice a month, then almost every week. A literary conference in Austin, James explained as he packed his suitcase. 3 days. I'll be back Friday evening. Austin again? Austin asked, trying not to sound suspicious. The University of Texas is hosting a series of seminars on contemporary prose. It's important for my resume. Austin nodded. He didn't understand the academic world, so he couldn't argue. But something bothered him. James was becoming more distant. They talked less. Sex became rare, almost formal. When Austin tried to discuss it, James blamed it on stress at work, fatigue, administrative problems at the college. In September, a week before everything started to fall apart, Austin decided to do something special. September 23rd was their anniversary, 5 years since their first date. Austin reserved a table at the grill at Hacienda del Sol, one of Tucson's finest restaurants, located at the foot of the mountains. He planned to give James a gift, an old first edition of a Steinbeck novel he found in an antique store. But 2 days before the anniversary, James announced that he was leaving again. "It's unexpected," he said over dinner, barely touching his salad with his fork. "I've been asked to participate in a panel discussion I can't refuse." "When?" Austin asked, feeling something tighten in his chest. "I'm leaving Thursday morning. I'll be back on Sunday." "James, our anniversary is on Saturday." James paused for a moment, then nodded. "I'm sorry. I know. We'll celebrate when I get back. I'll make it up to you." Austin said nothing more. He canceled the restaurant reservation and put the book away in a drawer. That night, they went to bed in silence, each on their own side of the bed. James left early Thursday morning. Austin kissed him goodbye at the door and watched as he got into his Honda Accord and drove away. Then Austin went to work, spending the day between shelves of sneakers and sportswear, trying not to think about his relationship falling apart. On Friday evening, Austin sat at home alone, flipping through TV channels and drinking beer. James sent only one short message during the day. "Busy, will text later." No phone calls, no video conference. Austin began to feel something more than just disappointment. It was a feeling of unease that slowly grew into suspicion. On Saturday, their anniversary, Austin woke up around 9 in the morning. The house was empty and quiet. He made coffee, sat on the patio, and looked at the mountains in the distance. His phone remained silent. James hadn't greeted him. He hadn't written anything. Around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Austin decided to clean the house to keep himself busy. He was vacuuming the living room when he heard the phone ring from the bedroom. It wasn't his phone. James had left his spare iPhone, an older model he sometimes used as a backup. It was lying on the bedside table where James usually charged his devices. Austin stopped the vacuum cleaner and went to the bedroom. The phone was ringing, and the name R was lit up on the screen. A red heart. Austin froze. He didn't answer the call, letting it go to voicemail. His heart was beating faster. He picked up the phone. He knew the unlock code. James never hit it. 2847. Austin unlocked the screen and went to messages. There was a string of text conversations. Most were work-related, colleagues from college, administration, students. But there was one contact. R. Austin opened the conversation. A cold wave washed over him. Can't wait to see you. Miss you. Me too. I'm leaving in the morning. I'll make dinner. Your favorite. You're the best. The messages were dated Wednesday, the day before James left. Austin scrolled further. There were photos, not explicit, but intimate. A photo of a man taken inside an apartment, smiling, wearing a t-shirt, holding a cup of coffee. A photo of two hands intertwined, emojis with hearts and kisses. Austin sat down on the edge of the bed. His hands were shaking. He continued scrolling. The correspondence went back months, hundreds of messages. Can't wait to be home again. Thanks for a wonderful weekend. I love you. I love you too. He moved on to the photos in the phone's gallery. There were dozens of pictures. James with another man. They were in a restaurant, both smiling. They were at some festival, holding hands. They were in an apartment, hugging on the couch. The man was about Austin's age, dark-haired, with a well-groomed beard. Austin felt nauseous. He closed the phone and put it back on the nightstand as if it might explode. He sat motionless, staring at the wall, trying to digest what he had just seen. How long had this been going on? Months? A year? More? All those conferences, all those trips. James hadn't been to seminars. He was with someone else, with a man Austin didn't even know, with a man who, judging by the correspondence, considered James his partner. Austin got up and went to the kitchen. He opened the refrigerator, took out another beer, and drank almost half the bottle in one gulp. His thoughts were racing. Anger mixed with pain, pain with shock. He tried to remember the last time he felt that James was truly present in their relationship, the last time they talked about something important, the last time they made love not mechanically, but with real intimacy. Months, maybe more than 6 months. Austin spent the rest of the day wandering around the house. He couldn't concentrate on anything. He turned on the TV, but didn't see what was on. He tried to read, but the words blurred. He didn't write to James. He didn't call. He just waited. James returned on Sunday evening, as promised. Austin was sitting in the living room when he heard the sound of a key in the lock. James came in with a suitcase, looking tired but satisfied. "Hi," he said, setting the suitcase by the door. "Sorry I didn't call." The conference had been intense. Austin looked at him. He wanted to yell, throw something, demand an explanation. But instead, he just nodded. "How did it go?" "Good, productive." James walked into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. "Did you eat?" "Yes." James nodded and took a bottle of water. He didn't ask about the anniversary. He didn't apologize again. He just acted as if everything was normal. Austin looked at him and understood. This man was living a double life, and he, Austin, was only one half of that life, perhaps not even the main half. That night, they went to bed in silence. Austin lay on his back, staring at the dark ceiling, listening to James's steady breathing beside him. He knew he had to make a decision. But part of him was afraid to find out the whole truth, afraid of what he would find if he dug deeper. But another part, stronger, colder, already knew. He would find out everything. Whatever it was, no matter how much it hurt, he had to know the truth. The next morning, after James left for work, Austin sat down at the computer and started looking for a private investigator in Tucson. Tuesday started out like a normal workday, but Austin could hardly concentrate on anything. He stood by the athletic shoe racks at Sports Authority, advising customers on soles and cushioning, but his mind was elsewhere. The phone in his pocket felt heavier than usual. During his lunch break, he sat in his car in the mall parking lot and opened Google. Private Detective Tucson. The list appeared quickly. Dozens of agencies, from large firms to individuals. Austin began reading reviews and visiting websites. He needed someone discreet, professional, who wouldn't ask unnecessary questions. He settled on Desert Investigations, a medium-sized firm with an office on the east side of town. The website featured a photo of the owner, a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and a serious expression. The reviews were mostly positive. Many cases involved marital infidelity, corporate investigations, and people searches. Austin dialed the number. The secretary answered after the third ring and scheduled an appointment for Thursday at 3 in the afternoon. He asked for time off work, saying he had a dentist appointment. The next 2 days dragged on unbearably slowly. James behaved completely normally. He came home from work, made dinner or ordered food, watched TV, and went to bed before Austin. They hardly spoke. Austin was afraid that his voice would betray what he knew. James didn't seem to notice the distance, or he pretended not to notice. On Thursday, Austin went to the Desert Investigations office. The building was a single-story beige brick structure located between a car repair shop and an accounting firm. Inside, it was cool from the air conditioning and smelled of coffee and paper. The secretary, a young woman with large glasses, asked him to wait. A few minutes later, he was shown into an office. Kate Morales, the agency's owner, was a short, sturdy woman with a penetrating gaze. She motioned Austin to a chair across from her desk, which was piled high with folders and documents. "How can I help you, Mr. Daniels?" Austin nervously clasped his hands. He had rehearsed this conversation dozens of times in his head, but now the words were difficult to find. "My partner. I suspect he's cheating on me. I need proof." Kate nodded, showing no emotion. She took out a notepad. "How long have you been together?" 5 years. "What made you suspicious?" Austin told her about the frequent trips, the phone, the messages he had seen. Kate listened attentively and took notes. She didn't interrupt or comment. When he finished, she put down her pen. "Do you have a photo of him? His full name? Where does he work?" Austin took out his phone and showed her a photo of James. He provided complete information, where he teaches, his car model and license plate number, and his approximate travel schedule. "He goes to Austin, Texas. He says it's for a conference, usually on Fridays and weekends, sometimes longer. His next trip is scheduled for a week from now." Kate wrote it all down. "We can set up surveillance. If he's really going to Austin, we'll need an employee there. That will increase the cost." "How much?" "A $2,000 advance. Then $300 per day of surveillance, plus expenses. If a detective is needed in another state, $500 per day. A full report with photos, videos if possible, documentation of the places he visits." Austin frowned. It wasn't cheap, but he had savings. Emergency money he kept in a separate account. He nodded. "Okay, do it." Kate handed him the contract. Austin signed it without reading the fine print and wrote a check for $2,000. They exchanged contact information. Kate promised to start surveillance immediately and get in touch as soon as she had something concrete. The week of waiting was hell. Austin tried to live normally, but every conversation with James seemed fake. He caught himself studying every gesture, every word, looking for confirmation of his suspicions. James planned to leave on Friday evening and return on Monday. "A seminar on contemporary prose," he said. Austin nodded and asked no questions. On Friday, when James left, Austin stayed home. He couldn't work, so he took sick leave, saying he wasn't feeling well. It wasn't a lie. He really was nauseous from stress. He paced around the house, unable to settle down, checking his phone every 10 minutes. Kate wrote in the morning that her colleague in Texas was ready to observe. On Saturday evening, Austin received a message from Kate on his phone. "I have information. Can we meet on Monday at 10?" Austin replied immediately, "Yes." The weekend dragged on endlessly. Austin hardly slept on Sunday night. He woke up at 6 in the morning, even though the meeting wasn't until 10. James came home late Sunday night. They said a quick hello, and each went to their side of the bed. On Monday, Austin asked for time off again. He arrived at the Desert Investigations office 15 minutes early and sat in the reception area, clenching his hands. His heart was beating so loudly that it seemed to be audible in the silence of the office. Kate met him with a thick folder in her hands. They went to her office. She closed the door, sat down at her desk, and opened the folder. "Mr. Daniels, I have some information. It's not easy. Are you ready to hear it?" Austin nodded, although he didn't feel ready for anything. Kate laid a series of photographs on the table. Austin looked at them and felt everything inside him break. The first photo, James leaving Austin Airport. The second photo, James at baggage claim, picking up his suitcase. The third, James getting into a car in the parking lot. Behind the wheel is a man, the same dark-haired, bearded man Austin saw on the phone. The next photos were even worse. James and the man enter an apartment building, holding hands. They are on the balcony, hugging. They are in a restaurant, sitting close to each other, laughing. A photo from an evening walk. They are walking down the street. James has his arm around the man's shoulder. Kate continued in a tone devoid of emotion. The man's name is Ryan Morris, 35 years old, graphic designer, freelance. He has lived in Austin for 10 years. Our employee ran a basic check, no criminal record, stable employment history. James is staying at his apartment. The address is 2847 South Lamar Boulevard, 3rd floor. She turned to the next page of the report. "We tracked the phone records as far as we could without a warrant. James calls this number regularly." She pointed to the phone number. The first recorded call dates back to September 2023, more than 2 years ago. 2 years. Austin felt the room slowly spinning. "There's more," Kate continued. "Our detective in Austin did some additional surveillance. They seem to have a routine. James comes every 2 to 3 weeks, stays for the weekend, sometimes longer. They act like a couple, shopping together, going to restaurants, evenings at home. The neighbors we spoke to know them as a couple who live together from time to time." Austin couldn't take his eyes off the photos. In one of them, James was kissing the man, Ryan, at the entrance to the house. In another, they were sitting on the balcony, drinking wine, looking completely happy. "Did you find out anything about whether this person, Ryan, knows about me?" Kate shook her head. "We can't confirm that without direct contact with him, but judging by their behavior, they both act as if they are in a serious relationship. There are no signs that he knows about anyone else." Austin took the photos with trembling hands. 2 years. James had been living a double life for 2 years, maybe even longer, considering that the first call might not have been the first contact. While Austin was planning their anniversary, thinking about getting engaged, about their future together, James was building another life in another state with another person. "I need copies of everything," Austin said quietly. Kate nodded and handed him the folder. A full report with photos, timeline, addresses, phone numbers. "If you need further surveillance or want to gather more evidence, we can continue." "No, that's enough." Austin paid the rest of the fee, thanked Kate, and left the office, clutching the folder so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He got in his car in the parking lot and just sat there, staring out the windshield, seeing nothing. He didn't go to work. He called in sick. He drove home. The house was empty. James was at work until 5. Austin laid the photos out on the kitchen table, one by one, piece of evidence after piece of evidence. He studied every detail. James's expression, happy, relaxed, in love, the way Austin hadn't seen him in months. That man, Ryan, looked much the same, in love, happy. Austin didn't cry. He just felt an emptiness growing inside, filling all the space where love and trust had once been. At 5:30, he heard the sound of a key in the lock. James came in and put his briefcase by the door. "Hi, you're home early." Austin was sitting at the kitchen table. The photos were still in front of him. "Sit down," he said quietly. James stopped in the kitchen doorway, his gaze falling on the table. Austin saw him turn pale, his eyes widen. "Austin, sit down, now." James slowly approached and sat down opposite him. His hands were shaking. "Where did you get these?" "It doesn't matter." Austin pushed the photos toward him. Ryan Morris, 35 years old, Austin, Texas, 2 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. James covered his face with his hands. His shoulders shook. "Austin, How long?" Austin interrupted him. His voice was surprisingly calm, cold. "Tell me the truth. How long has this been going on?" James lowered his hands. His eyes were red. 2 years and 3 months. We met at a literary conference. I didn't plan it. It just happened. It just happened, Austin repeated. And it kept happening every 2 weeks for 2 years. I didn't want to. What didn't you want to, James? Didn't want to betray me? Didn't want to live a double life? Didn't want to deceive both me and him? James was silent. Tears streamed down his face. "Does he know about me?" Austin asked. James shook his head. "No. I told him I live alone, that I teach in Pima and go to Texas on weekends because I love Austin." "So you've been deceiving both of us." Austin felt the cold inside him turn to anger. "How many other people are there in your life that I don't know about?" "No one. Just you two." What, James? You love both of us? You couldn't choose? You thought you could have me and him and no one would find out?" James nodded, his voice barely audible. "I didn't want to lose either of you. I know it's terrible. I know I'm a monster. But I couldn't stop. With Ryan, it was different. He's different. But you're important to me too." Austin stood up so abruptly that his chair fell backward. "I don't want to hear this. I don't want to listen to you justify what you did. 2 years, James. 2 years. You looked me in the eye every day and lied. Austin, please. Take your things and go. I don't know where. To Ryan's, to a hotel, to hell. But you're not staying here tonight." James stood up, walked over to Austin, and tried to touch his hand. Austin pulled his hand away. "Don't you dare touch me. I can fix this. Give me a chance, I'll end it with Ryan." "Me? End things with Ryan?" Austin laughed bitterly. "And in a month you'll find someone else? James, you've been living a double life for 2 years. You've been lying to me every day, every trip, every lie about conferences, every night you slept next to me after spending the weekend with him. How can I trust you?" James stood helplessly, tears still streaming down his face. "I don't know, but I love you. I really do." Austin turned away. His own eyes stung, but he didn't allow himself to cry. "Get out. Now." James stood there for a moment, then slowly walked to the bedroom. Austin heard him gathering his things, opening drawers, packing clothes into a bag. 20 minutes later, James returned with a suitcase and a duffel bag. "Austin, go." James nodded and left. Austin heard the door close, the car engine start, and the sound fade away. Only then, left alone in the empty house, did Austin allow himself to sit down on the kitchen floor and cry. Austin spent the night on the sofa in the living room. He couldn't bring himself to lie down in the bed where he had slept next to James just yesterday. The house seemed empty and alien, as if all 5 years of their life together had suddenly evaporated. He stared at the ceiling, listened to the silence, and replayed everything he had learned in his head. 2 years of deception, 2 years of living a double life. James had been flying between two men, building relationships with both, lying to both. But what bothered Austin the most was something else. Ryan didn't know about him. That man in Texas lived under the same illusion as Austin. He thought James was his partner, that they had a future, that James was coming to him because he loved him. Ryan was not to blame for this. He was just as deceived as Austin. On Tuesday morning, around 8 o'clock, Austin got up from the sofa, made coffee, and sat down at the kitchen table with the folder from the detective agency. He found the page with Ryan Morris's contact details: phone number, address, email. Austin stared at the number for a long time before dialing it on his phone. He wasn't sure he was doing the right thing, but if their roles were reversed, if Ryan had found out the truth first, Austin would have wanted to be told. He deserved to know. Austin pressed call. The rings seemed endless. On the 5th ring, he was about to hang up, but then someone answered. "Hello?" The voice was pleasant, a little sleepy. The time difference, it was an hour later in Texas, but still quite early. "Ryan Morris?" "Yes." "Who is this?" Austin took a deep breath. "My name is Austin Daniels. I'm James Collins's partner. We need to talk." There was a pause. Austin could hear Ryan breathing on the other end of the line. "Partner? I'm sorry, I don't understand." James has lived with me in Tucson for the last 5 years. We're together, or we were together until yesterday, when I found out about you." Another pause, longer this time. "Is this some kind of joke?" "I wish it were." Austin began to speak faster, afraid Ryan would hang up. "Listen, I understand how this sounds, but I have proof. Photos, reports, everything. James traveled to you every 2 weeks, telling me he was going to conferences. He's been living a double life for 2 years, with you and with me. No, that's impossible." Ryan's voice became sharper. "James teaches at Pima. He lives alone. He lives with me at 4521 North Oracle Road. We bought it 3 years ago. Together. We have joint accounts, joint friends, a joint life. Or we did, until yesterday." Austin could hear Ryan breathing heavily. "I don't believe you. I can send you photos, James and me together, dated over the years. Or you can just ask him yourself." A long pause. Then, "Send the photos." Austin quickly selected a few pictures from his phone. Him and James hiking in the Santa Catalina Mountains, at a barbecue with friends, at home on the couch. He sent them to Ryan's number and waited. The minutes dragged on. Austin imagined Ryan looking at the photos, his world falling apart just as Austin's had the day before. Finally, the phone rang again. Ryan. "Oh my God." His voice was quiet, broken. "It's true. Yes. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know about you." He said he lived alone, that he taught in Arizona and came to Austin because he liked it here. "We've been together for 2 years. I know. I have a report from the detective. He followed you both last weekend." Ryan didn't respond for a few seconds. "Where is he now? James?" "I don't know. I kicked him out yesterday, probably at a hotel. I need to talk to him." Ryan's voice became firmer. "I'm flying to Tucson. Today, if I can get a ticket." Austin wasn't expecting that. "You don't have to." "I do. If it's true, and I can see that it is, I want to hear it from him. I want to look him in the eye and hear him explain it." Austin understood. He felt the same way. "Okay, let me know when you arrive. We can meet up, talk to him together." Yes, let's do that." Ryan paused. "Thank you for calling. I know it wasn't easy." "You deserved to know." They said goodbye. Austin put the phone down on the table and covered his face with his hands. He felt exhausted, even though the day had only just begun. An hour later, a message came from Ryan. Flight at 2:40 p.m., arriving in Tucson at 4:15 p.m., booked a hotel. Austin replied, "Okay, I'll text you the address where we'll meet." Now he had to tell James. Austin didn't want to talk to him, but it was necessary. He dialed James's number. He answered on the second ring. "Austin," his voice was hopeful. "Ryan is flying into Tucson today." I told him everything. Silence. "What? Why did you—" "Because he deserved to know, James. Just like I deserved to know. You lied to both of us. Now we both know the truth." "Austin, you don't understand. We're meeting tonight. All three of us. At 7, at my place. Be there." "I don't think that's a good idea." "I don't care what you think. Be there at 7, or I'll send all the evidence to your college and all our mutual friends. The choice is yours." Austin hung up without waiting for a response. His hands were still shaking. He had never threatened anyone like that before, but the rational part of his brain had shut down. All that remained was pain and anger. Austin spent the rest of the day cleaning the house, not because it needed it, but because he needed something to keep his hands busy. He vacuumed, mopped the floors, dusted, all mechanically, automatically. At 4 o'clock, a message came from Ryan. "Landed, heading to the hotel. Meet you at 7? "Yes. Address, 4521 N Oracle Ard. See you there." At 6 o'clock, Austin began to feel nervous. He wasn't sure what to expect from this meeting. How would they talk? What would they say? He poured himself a glass of whiskey to calm his nerves, but only touched it with his lips. He didn't want to be drunk during the conversation. At exactly 7 o'clock, there was a knock at the door. Austin opened it. Ryan Morris was standing on the doorstep. In person, he looked just like he did in the photos. Medium height, dark hair, neat beard. He was wearing jeans and a simple gray t-shirt. His eyes were red, his face tired. "Austin?" "Yes. Come in." Ryan entered and looked around the living room. His gaze lingered on the photos on the wall, Austin and James at different stages of their relationship. "So it's true," Ryan said quietly. "I was still hoping." "Me too," Austin interrupted. They stood in an awkward silence. Then Ryan sat down on the sofa, Austin in the armchair opposite. "Tell me," Ryan said, "how long have you been together?" 5 years. We met at a friend's party. He moved in with me a year later." Ryan nodded. "We met at a literary conference in Austin 2 years ago. He said he taught in Pima, lived alone, and came to Texas because he liked Austin. We started dating. He came every 2 weeks, sometimes more often. I thought..." His voice broke. "I thought we were building something real." "I thought so too," Austin said. A moment later, there was another knock at the door. Both men froze. Austin got up and opened the door. James stood in the doorway, pale, with dark circles under his eyes. He looked at Austin, then his gaze shifted to the inside of the house, where Ryan was sitting. The look on his face was something like panic. "Come in," Austin said coldly. James slowly entered. Ryan got up from the sofa but did not approach. They stood a few feet apart, 3 men whose lives had become entangled in the worst possible way. "Sit down," Austin ordered, pointing to a chair. James sat down. He looked broken, small. Austin remained standing, his arms crossed over his chest. Ryan also stood, leaning against the back of the sofa. "We both know the truth," Austin began. "Now you're going to tell us everything, from the beginning. No lies." James stared at the floor. His hands were shaking. "I don't know where to start." "Start with when you decided to live a double life," Ryan said. His voice was sharp. "When you decided you could have both of us and neither of us would find out." James raised his head. "I didn't plan it. When we met, Ryan, I was in a relationship with Austin, but something sparked between us. I tried to stop after that conference, but I couldn't. You wrote to me, we kept talking, and I fell in love. And you didn't think to break up with me? Austin asked. I couldn't. I loved you too. I still do. Don't you dare, Ryan hissed. Don't you dare talk about love. You lied to both of us for 2 years. I know. Tears streamed down James's face. I know what I did. I'm a terrible person. But I truly love you both. I couldn't choose. You'll have to choose now, Austin said, because I'm not going to continue this, and I think Ryan isn't either. Ryan nodded. I came here to see you one last time, to hear the truth. Now I've heard it. It's over between us. James looked at him sharply. Ryan, please. No, you lied to me for 2 years. Every trip, every I love you, every night, it was all a lie. It wasn't a lie. My feelings for you are real. But the life you showed me was fake, Ryan said quietly. I can't trust you. Ever. James turned to Austin. Austin, please. Give me a chance. I'll end it with Ryan. You already ended it with me, Ryan interrupted. James, Austin said, his voice tired. Even if you end things with Ryan, how can I trust you? How can I know there won't be someone else in a month? You've proven you're capable of it. James bowed his head, his body shaking with sobs. I don't want to lose you. Any of you. You already have, Austin said simply. It's over. Tomorrow I'll call a lawyer. We'll formalize the separation. This is my house, my deed. You'll move out officially. You'll take your things, and we won't be together anymore. Austin. This is not up for discussion. There was a long silence. Ryan walked over to James. I'm going back to Austin tomorrow morning. Don't call me, don't text me, we're done. He turned back to Austin. Thanks for calling. It's better to know the truth, even if it hurts. Austin nodded. Ryan left, quietly closing the door behind him. James and Austin were left alone. Austin looked at the man he had lived with for 5 years and didn't recognize him. He was a stranger, a liar, someone he could never trust again. Get your things tomorrow, Austin said. I don't want to see you anymore. James stood up, his face wet with tears. I didn't want it to happen this way. But it did, because of your choice. Now live with it. James left without turning back. Austin closed the door behind him and, leaning against it, slowly slid to the floor. 5 years. Over in a week. Everything he believed in turned out to be an illusion. Wednesday began with Austin waking up on the couch, once again unable to get into bed. His body ached from the awkward position, his head heavy from insomnia. He looked at his phone, 7 in the morning. He had to go to work, but he couldn't bring himself to get up. He called his manager and said he was taking another day off. The voice on the other end of the line sounded concerned. It was already the 3rd day in a row, but Austin promised to be back on Thursday. He made coffee, went out to the backyard, and sat on the steps, looking at the dry landscape of a typical Arizona yard. The morning sun was already starting to beat down, even though it was only 8 in the morning. His phone vibrated. A message from Ryan. Flying home in 2 hours. Thanks again. Take care. Austin replied briefly. You too. He thought about Ryan. The man had spent the night in a hotel, probably as sleepless as he was. Tomorrow, Ryan would return to his life in Austin and try to forget James. Austin envied him for that distance. Ryan would be able to physically distance himself from the place where it all happened. Austin would remain here, in a house full of memories. Around 9 in the morning, James's car pulled up to the driveway. Austin saw it through the living room window. James got out, looking frail and rumpled, as if he hadn't slept all night either. He stood by the car for a minute, then walked to the door. Austin opened the door before he had a chance to knock. Here for your things? James nodded without looking him in the eye. Yes. I'll take everything today. I won't bother you anymore. Austin stepped aside, letting him in. James went to the bedroom. Austin stayed in the living room. He heard him opening cupboards, packing boxes. The sounds were mechanical, sad. 5 years of living together were being packed into cardboard boxes. An hour later, James carried the first 2 boxes to the car. Austin didn't help, just watched from the kitchen. James made several more trips, each time avoiding Austin's gaze. The tension in the house was palpable, like before a storm. During his last trip, James stopped at the kitchen doorway. Austin was standing at the sink, holding a cup of coffee. "Austin," James began, his voice trembling. "I know you don't want to hear me, but I have to try again. Please give me a chance to make it right." Austin put down his cup. "James, go. We've said everything there is to say. No, I can't just leave." James stepped into the kitchen. 5 years. We've been together for 5 years. That means something. It has to mean something. It did, until you ruined it with your lies. I can fix it. I'm done with Ryan. There's no one else, only you. Austin felt anger rising in his chest. You're done with Ryan because he dumped you, not because you chose me, and I don't need that. That's not true. I choose you. I've always chosen you. 2 years, James. For 2 years you chose him every 2 weeks. Every trip was a choice, and you didn't choose me. James moved closer, his face reddening. You don't understand. I was torn. I loved you both. I couldn't. Then you should have made a choice earlier. Austin exclaimed, you should have been honest. But instead, you lied, manipulated, and built a double life. And now that everything has come out, you want me to feel sorry for you? I'm not asking for pity. I'm asking for a chance. No. Austin. Get out of my house now. James froze, his hands clenched into fists. Your house? I've lived here for 5 years. The house is in my name. You know that. I paid the mortgage. And I paid the utilities, the repairs. I've invested as much in this house as you have. That doesn't give you the right to stay here. I want you to leave. Forever. James's face changed. Something dark and desperate appeared in his eyes. You can't just throw me out. You're ruining my life. I lost Ryan. Now I'm losing you. I'm losing this house. What do I have left? You have your job. You have the lies you now have to live with. You made your choice, James. Now live with the consequences. No. James's voice became quieter, more dangerous. I won't let you ruin everything. You can't just throw me away like I'm nothing. I can, and I am. Go. Austin turned back to the sink, signaling that the conversation was over. He could hear James's breathing behind him, heavy and uneven. The tension in the air became unbearable. Then everything happened very quickly. Austin heard a sudden movement behind him. He turned just in time to see James grab a large kitchen knife from the holder on the countertop. The expression on his face was strange, panic mixed with rage, tears on his cheeks, his mouth twisted. James, what are you doing? James lunged forward. The knife sliced through the air. Austin tried to jump back, but it was too late. The blade entered the left side of his chest, and a sharp pain exploded through his body. Austin screamed, grabbing James's arm, trying to push him away. They wrestled by the sink. James pushed the knife deeper, his face contorted, broken sounds coming out of his mouth. Not words, just sounds. Austin felt the strength leaving him, his legs buckling. He tried to hit James, scratching his face, but his hands wouldn't obey him. James pulled the knife out and stabbed him again, and again. Chest, stomach, shoulder. Austin fell to the floor, his blood spreading across the tiles. He tried to breathe, but his lungs wouldn't fill with air. The pain was everywhere, burning and all-consuming. He looked up. James was standing over him, holding the bloody knife. His eyes were wide open, filled with panic, shock, horror at what he had just done. There was blood on his hands, on his shirt, on his face. No, James whispered. No, no, no. Austin. God, what have I done? Austin tried to say something, but only blood came out of his mouth. His vision blurred. The last thing he saw was James's face, contorted with horror and despair. Then darkness engulfed everything. James stood over Austin's body, his breathing ragged and panicked. His hands were shaking so badly that he could barely hold the knife. He looked at his hands, at the blood, at what he had done. Panic turned into something else. Survival instinct. He threw the knife into the sink and turned on the water. He washed his hands and face, trying to wash away the blood. His brain was working chaotically. What to do? What to do? The police. The police would come. They would arrest him. His life was over. If only. The idea came suddenly. Robbery. Make it look like a robbery. Someone had broken into the house, and he and Austin had been attacked. Austin was dead, but he had survived. James rushed to the back door. He opened it, then pushed hard from the inside, knocking out part of the doorframe. He staged a break-in. Then he rushed to the living room, knocked over a couple of photo frames, scattered the pillows. He took Austin's laptop and hid it in the car. He returned, took Austin's phone and wallet out of his pockets. Then he stopped. Blood. His clothes were covered in blood. He quickly took off his shirt, hid it in a bag, and wiped his face with a towel. He put on a clean t-shirt from the box of his belongings, which he hadn't had time to take out yet. The knife. He had to hide the knife. He took it from the sink, wiped it, and hid it in a box under other clothes. Then he dialed 911. His voice trembled as he spoke. "Help! Someone broke into my house. My partner, oh my God, he's not breathing. Help us." The operator began asking questions. James answered, trying to sound panicked, which wasn't difficult because he was genuinely panicked. He said he had come home from shopping and found the back door broken and Austin on the kitchen floor. The burglar had apparently fled. 15 minutes later, the police arrived. 2 patrol cars and an ambulance. James met them at the entrance, his face wet with real tears. "He's inside, in the kitchen. Please save him." The paramedics rushed inside. The officers began to search the area. One of them, a young man with a serious expression, approached James. "Sir, what happened?" James told his version of events. He had been at the store buying groceries. He returned around 11 and found the back door broken. He went inside and saw Austin. He immediately called 911. The officer wrote everything down. His partner, an older man with a gray mustache, examined the back door. He crouched down, carefully studying the jamb. 20 minutes later, another car arrived. A woman of about 45, dressed in a business suit with a badge on her belt, got out. Her short, dark hair was pulled back, her gaze alert and assessing. "Detective Laura Wesley," she introduced herself. "Homicide Division." Homicide. The word sounded like a sentence. Detective Wesley walked into the kitchen. James saw her lean over the body, talk to the paramedics, who could do nothing. Austin was dead. She surveyed the crime scene, took notes, photographed it with her phone. Then she turned to James. "Mr. Collins, right? Are you the victim's partner?" "Yes. We've been together for 5 years. Tell me what happened." James repeated his story. The detective listened without interrupting, her face neutral. When he finished, she asked, "Were you at the store? Which one?" "Safeway on Oracle." "Do you have a receipt?" James hesitated. A receipt. He hadn't bought anything. He hadn't been to the store. "I don't remember. I probably threw it away." The detective wrote this down. "Did you see anyone suspicious? Near the house? On the street?" "No. No one." "Did Mr. Daniels have any enemies? Anyone who might want to hurt him?" "No. He worked at a sporting goods store. He was a regular guy." The detective nodded, continuing to take notes. Then she looked up and looked him straight in the eye. "Mr. Collins, you have blood on your shoes." James looked down. There were indeed bloodstains on his sneakers. He had forgotten about them. "When I found him, I went over. I tried to check his pulse." "I see. The detective made another note. "You'll have to come with us to the station. Give an official statement." "Of course, whatever you need." The next few hours were a blur. James was taken to the police station and put in an interrogation room, a small room with gray walls and a mirror that he knew was one-way glass. Detective Wesley returned with another detective, a younger Asian man who introduced himself as Detective Chen. They asked questions, the same ones as before, but with more detail about his relationship with Austin, about their finances, about conflicts. James answered cautiously, trying not to contradict himself. Then Detective Wesley leaned forward. "Mr. Collins, we found something interesting. The back door of your house was broken from the inside, not the outside. The impact mark goes from the kitchen to the outside." James felt his heart skip a beat. "I don't understand. Maybe the thief hit from the other side?" "That's physically impossible," she said calmly. "The pattern of damage shows that the force was applied from the inside." "Then I don't know." "And," the detective continued, "we found no signs of forced entry. No fingerprints except yours and Mr. Daniels. No shoe prints. It's as if someone tried to stage a break-in, but did a poor job of it." James was silent. His hands were shaking under the table. At that moment, a junior officer entered the room and whispered something to Detective Wesley. She nodded, then turned back to James. "Mr. Collins, a man just came to see us. He says his name is Ryan Morris. He's from Austin, Texas. He claims to have information relevant to this case. Do you know him?" James closed his eyes. Everything was falling apart. "Yes, I know him." Detective Wesley left James in the interrogation room and went out into the hallway, where Ryan Morris was waiting for her. He looked confused and stunned, his eyes red from crying. "I saw the news at the hotel," Ryan said quietly. "The murder on North Oracle Road. I knew right away it was their house. What happened? Where's Austin?" The detective led him into another interrogation room. They sat across from each other at a metal table. "Mr. Morris, I'm afraid I have some bad news. Austin Daniels is dead. He was killed at his home today." Ryan covered his face with his hands. His shoulders shook. "No, God, no. We just talked yesterday, all three of us." He raised his head. "Where's James?" "Mr. Collins is giving his statement right now. He claims he found the body after returning from shopping." The detective paused. "But you said all three of us. Can you explain?" Ryan nodded and began to tell her about how Austin had called him on Tuesday and told him about James's double life, about his arrival in Tucson, about the meeting on Wednesday evening, where the three of them confronted the truth, about how both he and Austin broke off their relationships with James. Austin said James had to pack his things and leave for good, that the house was his and James would no longer live there. Ryan looked at the detective. James was desperate. He begged us to give him a chance, but we both refused. Detective Wesley quickly took notes. How did James react to that? He cried. He said he didn't want to lose us, that he loved us both. Ryan fell silent. "Do you think James did it?" "We're looking at all possibilities," the detective replied neutrally. "Mr. Morris, where were you this morning?" "At the hotel, the Hampton Inn on East Broadway. I was going to the airport at 1 o'clock until I saw the news." "Do you have receipts from the hotel? Will the surveillance footage confirm your presence there?" "Yes, of course." The detective nodded. "Thank you for the information. It's very helpful. Stay in town for another day or two. We may need additional testimony." While Detective Wesley was talking to Ryan, her partner, Detective Chen, was directing the work at the crime scene. Forensic experts were carefully examining every corner of the house. They found several critical pieces of evidence. First, blood. There was a lot of blood on the kitchen floor where Austin's body had been lying, but there were also traces of blood in the sink. Someone had tried to wash it away. DNA was found on a towel hanging nearby, which was later identified as James's DNA. Second, Pieces of skin and blood were found under Austin's fingernails, signs that he had fought with his attacker. Forensic tests later confirmed that this was James's DNA. Third, the broken back door. A forensic expert confirmed what Detective Wesley had already noticed. The door had been broken from the inside. The pattern of damage was unambiguous, and most importantly, the box in the trunk of James's car. A patrol officer who checked the car in the parking lot near the house found a blood-soaked shirt and a large kitchen knife. Both items were hidden under clothes in a cardboard box. By evening, Detective Wesley had enough evidence. She returned to the interrogation room, where James had been sitting for several hours. He looked exhausted, his hands trembling on the table. "Mr. Collins," she began, laying out the folders in front of her. "I just spoke with Ryan Morris. He told me a very interesting story about your double life, about how you deceived two men for 2 years." James did not respond. "He also told me about the meeting last night, about how Austin Daniels told you to get out of his house for good." The detective leaned forward. "That must have hurt, losing both men you loved, losing your home." "It's not," James's voice broke. "And our forensic team found some interesting things." She opened a folder and laid out some photos. "Your blood-stained shirt in the trunk of your car, the knife, the murder weapon, in the same box, Austin's DNA on the knife, your blood and skin under his fingernails, your DNA on the kitchen towel someone used to wipe up the blood." James stared at the photos, his face white. "The timeline is also interesting," the detective continued. "The medical examiner determined the time of death to be between 10 and 11 a.m. That's when, according to you, you were at the store. But we checked the Safeway cameras on Oracle. You weren't there. Your car didn't appear in the parking lot. I could have been mistaken about the store. Mr. Collins, there's enough evidence. You killed Austin Daniels. Then you tried to stage a robbery, but you did it clumsily. The back door, no signs of forced entry, your blood at the scene." She paused. "Why don't you tell the truth? Get it off your chest." James sat silently for a few minutes. Then his shoulders slumped, and he began to speak in a quiet, hollow voice. "I didn't plan it. I came to pick up my things. We had an argument. He said I had to leave for good, that I was worthless, that I had ruined my own life." Tears streamed down his face. "I knew I was losing everything. Ryan had left me. Austin had left me. My job, if this got out at college, the scandal would destroy my career. I had nothing left." "And you grabbed the knife?" James nodded. "I didn't think. It just happened. I saw him turning away from me, and something inside me broke. I wanted him to stop, to listen, to understand." He choked up. But it was too late. He fell, and I realized what I had done. "And then you decided to cover up the crime." "I panicked. I thought I could make it look like a robbery. No one would find out." He laughed bitterly, but I didn't think about the details. All the little things that give you away. Detective Wesley turned off the tape recorder. "James Collins, you are under arrest on suspicion of the murder of Austin Daniels." The trial lasted 3 months. James's lawyer tried to get a plea bargain, but the prosecution insisted on a full trial. The evidence was compelling. Forensic reports, Ryan's testimony about the motive, James's own confession during questioning. Ryan testified in court. He told the jury about James's double life, about the meeting on Wednesday evening, about how James begged them to stay with him. His voice trembled as he described his last conversation with Austin, a man he barely knew but with whom he shared the pain of betrayal. Austin's family, his mother, sister, and 2 nephews, sat in the courtroom every day. His mother gave emotional testimony about the loss of her son, about the 5 years they thought he was happy. The jury returned with a verdict after 4 hours of deliberation: guilty of second-degree murder with aggravating circumstances. The judge sentenced James Collins to 23 years in prison, with no parole eligibility for the first 15 years. As he was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, James turned and looked at Ryan, who was sitting in the third row. Their eyes met for a moment. Then James was led away. Ryan returned to Austin the day after the sentencing. He sold his apartment, too many memories of James, and moved to another neighborhood. He found a therapist who helped him cope with the trauma of betrayal and indirect involvement in the tragedy. A year later, he was able to trust people again and began dating, cautiously opening his heart. The house on North Oracle Road was sold by Austin's family. The money went to a charitable foundation in his memory, scholarships for young athletes from low-income families. James Collins served his sentence in an Arizona state prison. He was expelled from Pima Community College immediately after his arrest. He lost everything he had. In prison, he wrote letters to Ryan, Austin's mother, but none of them were answered. He was left alone with his actions, realizing the price he had paid for not being honest, for his greed to have everything and lose himself in lies. Detective Laura Wesley closed case number 2025-04782 as solved. Her report stated that the murder was the result of a personal conflict, motivated by jealousy and fear of losing control of the situation. The suspect confessed, and the evidence confirmed his guilt. The case of Austin Daniels became yet another tragic story of how lies, deception, and a double life lead to irreversible consequences. It shows how an impulsive decision made in a moment of panic destroys not only the victim's life, but also the lives of everyone involved in the story.